take care of yourself. Don't worry about like if your friends are going to miss you. They're going to miss you for a second, but they'll get over it.
Yeah.
And there will be plenty of times to come, but just take care of yourself first, you know?
All right. Welcome back to another episode of Flirty Surviving Podcast. Before we do introductions today, I just want to say a quick thank you to everyone who has messaged us, who's watched, who's listened. You guys have been so sweet so far and helping us kind of get our bearings and figure out what the heck we're doing over here. So just thank you. We really appreciate it.
We love you.
Yes, we love you. And my name is Tracy.
My name is Kelsie.
My name's Tanisha.
What up? Don't forget to like, follow, subscribe to Flirty Surviving Podcast on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, iHeart. Thank you.
So for this episode, we're going to talk about mental health. It's something that I think most people deal with, and if you don't deal with it, somebody in your life most likely does. And there's like a huge stigma around it in terms of like just because you can't see it doesn't make it not real or something terrible to deal with. So we just kind of want to talk about our experience with it, ways that we've at least makes us on our way of overcoming it, because I don't think you ever fully overcome something like a mental health issue. But we're also not obviously licensed professionals, so just take what we say, like take what you want away from what we say, and yeah, we'll just talk about ways that you can help yourself and all that good stuff.
Yeah, important to note. That's a great point. This is coming from experiences and what we've seen others deal with, and how we've approached our own journey, but it's not one size fits all. So that's good to know. And we will be sharing just some information with our listeners and followers via our social channels for mental health help.
Yeah, I think that, you know, whether you've suffered from some mental health issues yourself in the past, or if you've known somebody who has, and it's whether it's impacted you, you know, directly or indirectly, it has impacted you in some way, shape, or form. And so our intention today is not to sit here and claim to be experts by any means, but just to sort of help start these conversations and make it easier to talk about, because it tends to be a topic where people tread lightly, and it's a lot more common and apparent and real than maybe is known. So to kick this off, the first thing that I wanted to chat with you girls about, you two have been very open and honest about your experience with your mental health I hate saying the word issues, but, you know, like where maybe you've times where you've been feeling low, where it's been hard to sort of gain hold of your emotions. You guys have been really honest about that. Do you remember maybe when that first anxiety attack or that first, like real element of depression, like when that was for you?
You want me to go?
Yeah, you go.
I think mine was in college, and it was due to a bunch of different things. And I think mine started with anxiety and then moved into depression. So super anxious. It was really hard for me to get things done and focus on one thing because of the anxiety, which led to depression of like not really wanting to do much. And I think that it evolves over time, and as you grow and as your environment changes, it changes, and how you approach it changes. So it's been an interesting journey from then until now, because it's been like 10 years that I've known I've had it. I don't know if it's always within you and you just don't recognize it, and you kind of just keep pushing forward, and ignorance is bliss. But I would say like my early 20s is when I started recognizing it. What about you, Tanisha?
Recognizing it, I think last year, because life just came to like, I don't know, I can't think of the phrase I'm looking for right now, but everything just started happening all at once. And then I think I became aware of my mental health issues, but I definitely had it since probably high school, for sure. And I think, I don't know, you just keep it moving. And my family, we didn't talk about that stuff, so I just thought it was normal that like I couldn't go to school some days, or like I just didn't have, literally didn't have the mental capacity to do homework sometimes. And then last year, it just all came to a head, and I was like, wait a minute. And I had a panic attack in March, and that's when I was like, I called my mom crying, and I was like, something's wrong with me. What's wrong with me? And she's like, nothing, and got a therapist. But yeah, last year was a tough year.
Yeah, and I think it's changed a lot even since we were younger. Just there still is definitely a stigma around it, but I think people are more outward with it, and we can talk about it more, just more times than just Mental Health Awareness Month, because there's like a huge focus on that month, which is awesome, but it needs to be a year-round thing, 24/7. So I think that's super important for sure.
What I want to kind of add as a layer to the answers you guys just gave, I guess my question is also like, what was it that clicked, or what was the feeling or situation where you went from saying, this is not just me being in a sad mood, or this isn't just me feeling anxious right now, I perhaps have something larger going on here. Like, you know what I mean? Because I think like, everyone has gone through points of time where they were like really low or really sad, but like, when's the leap from that was just a dark time in my life to this may be something that I am going to deal with for a long time?
I went first last time, baby.
My panic attack is when it happened, because I just didn't know what was happening to me. I couldn't breathe. I was literally in the fetal position on the floor, bawling my eyes out, and I couldn't catch my breath, and my head was going to like a really dark place. And I think right then and there, I was just like, all right, Tanisha, like, this is serious, because what just happened there was just so intense. And I mean, I'm going to be super transparent. It was like suicide thoughts. Like, it was really dark. And that's when I was like, people don't normally feel that way. Like, that's not normal that sometimes you feel that way. And that's when I realized, like, you need to get a therapist. You need to figure out what the hell's going on. Because even if it isn't like a long-term thing, right now you are not fucking okay. Yeah. And that's when I noticed.
Before you answer, I just want to say, like, I know you added that in there very lightly, and that can be like triggering for people, but I think like your intent is to be honest and real, that like those are things that cross our minds. Like thinking of ending your life is not something that is just to be thrown in there. And like, I just want to say that I'm proud of you for acknowledging it. And I'm very proud of you for not going through with it and seeking help and alternatives instead.
Yeah, no, I definitely didn't mean to throw that in lightly. That's just like just part of the story. And I know what you mean. It can definitely be like triggering, but if I say anything, it's just me being like really real, and hopefully somebody can identify with that feeling, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, no, totally. And I think that it comes across people's mind more than people think, because it's such a, like, it's a whoa, like, oh my God. And so people don't always feel so like super comfortable with admitting that. So totally good on you for being able to admit that part of your journey. It's huge. For me, I think I started really knowing that I needed to make a change when it was like affecting my relationships with my friends, with my family, with my boyfriends. Like it was just affecting every aspect of my life, and I really needed to take charge of it and recognize it and admit it. And I think that's like one of the hardest parts, especially when you're like strong-willed, which I think all three of us are, and we like to be independent. We like to think that we can handle things on our own. This just simply isn't something that you can handle on your own. You need support systems. You need to know how to communicate that effectively to your support system, and you need to find a therapist that fits for you. And sometimes that's super hard, and causes anxiety itself is the journey of trying to find help. Yeah. It's a very, very stressful thing, but with a high reward,
Yeah, totally.
For anyone who is listening or watching today and like has felt maybe that breaking point. Kelsie, you're talking about things that they can do. Tanisha, I know you have a therapist right now. Will you give them some insight on like where you went to find that psychologist and what that process was like for you to maybe hopefully, to Kelsie's point, like take some of that anxiety away for them?
Yeah, I used a friend referred this website to me, and I can post it on like our Linktree or something like that. I think it was it psychology.com, or I'll have to figure it out.
I think it's psychologytoday.com.
Mm-hmm. Psychology Today okay, and they just like, you can put in your who you have for insurance, and then it'll filter it that way, and then it gives you all the different doctors, and you can just go online and reach out and see who has availability, which can be daunting, but that website helps because you're messaging them all in one place. So you just like click, I'm interested, or whatever it says, and then you write your message and they can get back to you. So you can do as many people as you want.
Yeah, and you can filter it like by who takes my insurance or the specialties that they practice in, if it's, family or relationships, like whatever it may be. So you can fine tune it to who fits for you.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to lie, I'm very much in the middle of my mental health journey still. Like, this happened, obviously, like I said, 10 years ago is when I recognized it. I think I've gone through 3 therapists and they haven't worked. And it's like, I'll get one, it doesn't work, I stop for like a period of time, I'll do it again. So like, because it is so exhausting, so I need that consistency and I need to keep moving forward. But I have like looked into betterhelp.com, which is also a really great one. Ironically, I've learned about it on my murder podcasts. Okay. But it seems like a great site. So I'm looking into that. And then I've just gotten referrals from friends because it seems that like, a lot of people have therapists nowadays. It's becoming more normalized. And I think like in places like California, it's definitely more normal. Whereas like Massachusetts, not so much.
Yeah. And I think that like, I'm really glad you said that because I'm sure it's very defeating when you've gone through your 3rd therapist or psychologist or whomever, and you're like, they don't get me, or I don't feel like we're clicking. But to know that is fairly common, and just like you choose your friends, you've got to like choose your therapist with intent as well. And so like, just keep getting back up and trying, and there will be someone out there who meshes with you and you feel like understands you.
Yeah, and I think it was very strange, especially during quarantine, because like I personally like the in-person sessions, and it was really difficult for me to do it over Zoom. I'm like, she's not even looking at me. I'm like, oh, maybe her dog's running over there. I don't know. But like, it just lost that personal connection, and I really need that. Like, I need that nurturing person. So super important. But we'll definitely share a list of resources for people. So be on the lookout for that.
Definitely. So something that we've talked about before is like family history when it comes to mental health, because it could be a part of your environment, like childhood trauma, or it could be just genetics, like your family, someone had depression, carried down to that person, person. I mean, I don't really know everyone's different. I mean, for me, I think it's both. It's like a double whammy.
Yeah.
But
yeah, it's like a nature versus nurture. It's kind of a crazy thought to consider.
Going back to what you were saying earlier too, if it like kind of always lives inside you or not, I think that what can happen sometimes too, obviously this is never like a blanket statement or true for everybody, but like if they're, a lot of these things can be a chemical imbalance in the brain, right? Some of these mental health disorders, it could be something that is sort of dormant, and then you have that triggering experience and you realize that those coping skills you thought you would have in that moment aren't there, and that's when you realize that maybe there has been something pre-existing here that like I just haven't been faced with either that much of a hardship or adversity or confusion or whatever it may be. It could be like both. It's a marriage of the two,
Yeah, definitely. Because think about it. Like, if your parents had gotten therapy, how different would your life have been? It's crazy. So it's like you get the chemical imbalance, and then your parents who have those issues, who didn't get help, now you're surrounded by them as a child when your brain is developing, and you're soaking in all that negativeness or negativity. I don't think that's the word. But I'm trying here.
Amazing.
Yeah. You can't kick her while she's down.
I know. No, yeah, I totally agree. And I feel for our parents too, or like I know that my great grandmother struggled deeply, and so does my grandmother. And when they were at our age, that wasn't even a thing. It wasn't even a thought, or like, there are just so many different aspects too that it's crazy. I am in the same boat. I definitely think it's mostly genetics for me, but it's so frustrating when you can't like control it. You're like, I have all of these things. Why am I like
Yeah.
No.
But it is the chemical imbalance, to your point, Trace. Like, it truly is, and nobody should be ashamed about it or ashamed to speak on it.
And I think the attempt of mentioning like getting a therapist and all of that, for like, I don't know what any of our parent specific situations are, and I wouldn't speak on that on something like this, but like, I'm saying for someone our parents' age, it was more taboo when they were younger.
Exactly.
And so as they are in their older years, it's like if they were to seek therapy, it's repairing a lot of stuff that's happened versus us, we get the benefit of preventing some things from happening.
That is a good point.
Learning the tools, you know what I mean? Like, if for our parents, because no one talked about it, if they go seek it now as it's becoming more common, it will be absolutely beneficial no matter what. But it's probably like they got to go back 40 years and figure out where this whole thing started. We're getting the advantage of saying, okay, I know these things are being talked about. I think this might be happening to me. What do you think? What should I do? And now, yes, 30 is still young. At 30 years old, we have these coping mechanisms for the rest of our lives.
Yeah, I totally agree.
We're very lucky.
Yeah,
Very.
I definitely agree. Like,
Amen.
was mental health like discussed at all in your homes, like at all?
I got filled in like about my, like literally my great grandmother's issues. It was like sprinkled in here or there. It was never really like, it was never a sit down discussion.
Yeah,
So
that makes sense.
yeah, I wonder if everybody can hear that siren out there.
I don't think they
I
can.
didn't know what that was. I was like,
Well, it's happening, everyone.
Like, Tracy, turn your damn phone off
Yeah,
again.
I literally was looking at you. I'm like, Tracy,
She's just watching TikToks under the table.
literally.
No, mental health was not a topic of discussion in my
The
household.
Italian households,
You know,
they bury
Italian, like to
everything.
sweep it under the rug, eh?
Bury everything. What about you?
It was, but not like my mental health or any. So my dad has mental health issues, and it was very much centered around him. And it wasn't talked much about how his behavior is affecting his children.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, so I got a whammy of mental health issues, but my brothers, one of them schizophrenic, the other one has depression and alcoholism. So it was just like, that's where like the childhood trauma comes in, because it's like, there's definitely a chemical imbalance, but then like growing up around all that chaos, it messes with your head so much.
Yeah, and at that young age, you don't know what those things are. And
no
especially if
idea.
you're not educated on them.
Yeah.
You don't know. And at the time, society wasn't talking about it, and neither was your family.
You see the result or the reaction of it. And as a child, you only know how to interpret happy, mad, sad. And so you're just like, gosh, why is my brother mad all the time? Or why is my dad mad or sad? Like, and I think the kid's obvious first instinct is, it's my fault. Or like, what did I do?
Yes.
Exactly.
And it becomes very unhealthy for the child.
Hence my intense anxiety.
Hey. Fun time. No, I mean, in addition to like childhood traumas or genetics, I think it's interesting to see where you're at in your 30s with it, because I think that's where a lot of the pressures come into play. Obviously, when you start in the corporate world at a young age, it's really a lot. But to me, in your 30s, you're really trying to figure it out. Like, what are my next steps in life? And we've said it before, but like in 10 years, I am going to be 40. Ew. But I just think it's a number of things like
Age is just a number, baby.
yeah, I'm saying. But it's like a number of things, from like your job to your relationships, to even like social media. Like that causes me an immense amount of anxiety. I don't know about you guys. But you know, like Tanisha said earlier, people don't like see, I think some people don't see mental health as serious as it is, because they're like, you know, it's not physical. It's not like a physical illness, when in fact, it can be very physical. So have you guys ever experienced any physical symptoms from like anxiety or depression, and it doesn't have to be like an ongoing thing, because Tracy, I know you've mentioned like that's not a consistent thing for you. Like it's not like anxiety and depression, but like a situation where you're like, okay, I am shutting down now. Like,
totally. Like, and I don't want to make it seem like I'm like, what's the word I'm looking for? Like
immune to depression
or immune or like anything to like. I've had low moments and I've been in a very dark places like from time to time, but it has been something that it's more been like cause and effect. Like an event triggered me to feel a certain way. I felt that for whatever period of time, and then I was able to sort of pick myself back up. So I think that that's more, you know, that's more common. Like I don't know if that would necessarily qualify as a mental health disorder. It's just like there's highs and lows in life, you know?
Yeah.
But not to make light of anything, but we always say like the breakup diet.
Yeah, that's
true. There
true.
is nothing better than the breakup diet. It is my favorite kind of diet. But definitely, like, for me, I think my biggest anxieties tend to be relationships and work. I have said this plenty of times, and this is probably why, even if I don't have a quote-unquote mental health disorder, a therapist would be beneficial for me. I've said this, and I make light of it often, but, like, I have a hard time communicating my feelings. I'm not very upfront until I'm at my boiling point or until I've reached a point of being sad or upset and I've gotten mad. So
my little pressure cooker.
Yeah, exactly. Because I hate being vulnerable. So I think that like relationships trigger me in that sense a lot because I can kind of be like high and low, up and down. So then, you know, but even if I'm not good at saying it, I feel it. So a breakup really tends to hit me hard, and I have a lot of stress and anxiety. I can't sleep. I usually don't eat a lot. Like I'm very just tired and fatigued all the time. So I think that those would be like a temporary sort of physical symptom of what I'm feeling mentally, but it is directly correlated.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
What
Honestly,
about you,
I think the
Tanisha?
same exact thing.
Yeah.
Because I think about both of my breakups, like that I've talked about on the show, and both of them, I lost an immense amount of weight both times. So I would say the same thing. Because you just, can't eat, can't sleep, don't want to do anything. I feel so lethargic all the time. Yeah.
I think, well, I always eat for the most part, but I feel like being lethargic is a huge part of mine, and I feel like I'm like in a daze because my mind was racing for so long. So distracted, can't focus on one thing, and I just, in those moments, I try to take a deep breath, and I'm learning to say, and we've discussed this on past episodes, no more. Like, you know, if I don't feel like going out or if I'm not feeling in like the headspace, I need to say no at this point in my life. Like, you gotta take care of yourself. Don't worry about like if your friends are gonna miss you. They're gonna miss you for a second, but they'll get over it. And there will be plenty of times to come, but just take care of yourself first, you know?
And I feel like a tip that I was given that really helps me at least is like my anxiety, my brain just starts going, and I start thinking about all these different things and creating scenarios that aren't happening, and then I hurt my own damn feelings.
Yes.
So, oh my God, all the time.
I will hurt myself before anybody else can. God damn it, I'm in control.
That's exactly what it is. It's like, let me think worst case scenario so I can already get like, let me start the healing process of that scenario that may not ever happen.
I am the queen of sabotage.
Oh my God.
I will, like, a guy will be so sweet, do absolutely everything right, and after date one, I'm, like, thinking of all the 992 things that he could do wrong, and I'm like, this is never going to work out. He's like, what the fuck?
Like,
I literally wined and dined you. I did everything. I text you good morning. I text you good night. I'm like, yeah, this isn't going to work for me. I already see you breaking my heart.
Yeah. A good tip that I picked up from my therapist was like, if you find yourself doing that, to like bring yourself back to now. So she's like, even like go do dishes or wash your hands, and literally, even though you sound crazy, say like, I'm like, the hands are on my water, I'm washing this dish, and you don't even realize that while doing that, you're stopping your brain and you're in the moment.
Yeah.
You sound crazy, but it works.
You gotta act crazy to not be crazy.
Yeah, exactly. But it really helps, and then my brain just like stops, and then my heart starts to feel like less tight, and then I'm like, okay, and we're back.
Yeah, you have to take
That's
those
a really
moments.
good idea. I like that, because it is, you cannot control your mind.
No.
Those things pop up so involuntarily. So even just making yourself say something out loud that's so stupid and basic is subconsciously distracting your brain.
Yeah, definitely.
Whoa, I'm going to use
Yeah.
that. That's a really, really smart idea.
And speaking of like taking time to like slow it down, I feel like social media, for me at least, has such a big play in anxiety because when I am anxious, I find myself like scrolling through my phone like viciously. Like I think it's relaxing and it's not, because it's like an overload.
You're just going to crack your screen. You literally went in on that thing.
It's my acrylics ASMR. It's my acrylics. But I mean, I think like just doing that, and like you see a variety of different things on social, and it's not good. Like some happy, some sad. Like I don't want to see the abandoned puppy wandering in the street. Like for some reason, it's the algorithm because I love dogs. But I guess But I
you
get
never know what's going to be on that news feed, and so when your emotions are kind of already spiraling or all over the place on this little roller coaster. The unexpected that could occur on that is a little.
Oh my God! I'll be like, okay,
scary.
goodbye
It's
phone.
a little intimidating.
I feel like I need like a little place to put it.
Yeah, I am definitely like a music person.
Are you?
Music is what cures everything for me. Like,
I agree.
My sister always makes fun of me because, you know, most people are getting ready and they play like their pump up, like Cardi B and, you know, the old 90s songs. When I'm like getting ready, it's like, can you die from a broken heart?
You're always in your feels.
And Lisa's like, are you okay? Do you want to stay home? I was like, oh, I've never felt better. Like, I feel
doing her
great.
eyeliner.
And she's like, why do you always listen to sad music? And I was like, I know that it's sad, but it doesn't feel sad to me. It's like validating. Like, I love to listen to songs like that, because sometimes, just like how I've talked about journaling, sometimes that perfect lyric is something that I couldn't articulate. And I'm like, wow, that's exactly how I feel. Right? I was in
emotion.
the same exact shoes. So when I have a hard time being emotional, sometimes hearing it out loud in a song or reading it in a lyric makes me like feel it, and then I can kind of better move on. So whenever I'm feeling tense, I always just like put on my little playlists and listen.
Oh, that's good.
I like that.
I like that too.
Yeah.
To try that. I've taken a page out of both of your books, and I've recently started writing things down before I just like, again, I'm a Cancer, so I'll be like, emotions. And I have like just written it down in my notes in my phone and taken the time to like reflect on it, even if it's like I write it and then go back to it 10 minutes later. And it's so therapeutic.
Kind of like Jason with his text messages.
He's literally the one. So shout out to Jason Smith. He's the one. He's the one that like last episode he said that, and I'm like, that's a great idea.
So smart.
Yeah. So it's been really helpful.
Sometimes I do that, and then I go back to it 10 minutes later. I'm like, yeah, no, I'm going to send that shit.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you want to like
Never mess with a scorned Tanisha.
I know. I don't know if that's to do with me being Pisces or just me, but yeah, when I'm mad, I'm like, no, he's going to know.
Yep.
I feel like we've kind of just been talking about like how we've sort of dealt with our issues and addressed our issues sort of internally to ourselves. How have you guys gone about addressing what's going on with you to the people in your circle or your loved ones?
Tanisha and I both just raised our eyebrows.
It's not easy at all. I don't know. I mean, I don't even know. It's hard because I'm still navigating that myself, because like I said, like until last year, I didn't realize how bad my stuff was. Just being open and honest, and just be like, I'm having like yesterday, I was super anxious, and I was with Prince, and I just was like, I'm just really anxious today. And like just making sure we're all on the same page. And like you can't really control their reaction. All you can do is control what your reaction and what you're saying. So I don't think there's like a science to it. What do you think?
I think that patience is key on both sides of the spectrum. Because
that's true.
as the person who is suffering, you can't expect everybody to understand it off the bat. And I think that people that don't suffer from mental health issues can't always understand it. Like, I've approached people before and they've been like, and we've talked about this too, life is so good, just be happy. And it's like that was the answer.
Like,
okay.
Just be happy.
Like, and that's really not the right answer. Just take the time to ask like questions. I understand from like a significant other's perspective or a family member or friend's perspective, it's probably really upsetting because it's like, well, aren't I enough? And like my love and this, and it's like, it's bigger than that. It's bigger than you. It's bigger than me. Let's like tackle this together. I'll make sure to remain open with you and try not to let it get the best of me, but please be patient with me.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Patience is like huge because and like we've said before, I don't know how to really describe it when I'm really anxious. Like all I need you to do is just like be there. And I'm not even asking you to fix a problem. Like I'm not asking necessarily your advice or what to do, but just to like be there with me. And
Agreed. And I think it's important for the people that are struggling with issues to not use them, not like as your punching bag, but don't use them as like your therapist. I definitely did that in the past. Like I was like, I don't need a therapist. But then I was like telling my friends and significant other like all of my problems. And it's like without even asking, hey, how are you feeling today? Because I assumed they didn't have any issues. And that's not cool. So it's like that balance.
To be fair, like as your friend who sort of experienced some of that with you, I don't think that you didn't think I didn't have any issues. I just think that because of the mental health issues that you were dealing with, it was so consuming what you were feeling that you didn't have the capacity to step out of it to say, oh gosh, maybe I'm putting a lot on her and I don't even know what's on her plate.
Yeah.
I don't think that it's to say like you assumed I didn't have anything going on in my life. I think you just were it was like
no, it's literally like getting
alive.
Sucked into a tornado.
Yeah.
And you're like, I can't get out and I can't stop saying these things.
Yeah.
I'm like, shut up. It's just like coming out and flowing out of you because when you keep it inside for so long, it's just not good for anyone. And that's why I'm saying taking the steps to get the help is always beneficial.
Yeah, and I think like over communicating because I can't read your mind. And so like I sort of combining like both what you guys were saying, like being cognizant of the behavior when you're going through some of those things and making sure like you sort of say or like request some patience from the people around you. Like there was a period of time where I thought you hated me because you didn't text me.
Yeah.
And we didn't talk and hang out. And I didn't know until months later that you had been going through something. And to the point where I was like, what happened to our friendship? Like I haven't seen you in like 2 months. You know what I mean? And so I wish that I'm this isn't about me. It's not that like you owed it to me to tell me, but I was like, oh gosh, like I would have liked to have offered support or been there for you, but I didn't know the extent of it. Yeah. I just thought there was tension between you and I. So I think it's hard when like I'm not your problem when you're going through that. So it's not your first concern to be like, I should communicate this to Tracy. You know what I mean?
I think that's important to be cognizant of. Like also like the assumption side of it. It's like, oh, she hates me and like she's not talking to me, but like going out and saying like, hey, are you okay? It like goes a long way instead of, which I can see how somebody would be like, oh my God. I feel like
it would be, I'd be like, hey, like I haven't seen you in a while, like how are you? And you'd be like, good. And I'm like, okay, one word answer. And again, it's like, it's just the whole, don't leave room for gray area. You know what I mean? Like, because then I feel like I would give a little and then I'd get the one word answer and you weren't giving me a one word answer because you were mad at me. That was just all the capacity you had to text that day.
Yeah, no, literally.
Good. And that's it. And you weren't trying to be short, but I was like, if I'm already thinking she's upset with me, now I see a short answer. I'm like, yep, that's right. Yeah. She hates me. So I think it's really cool to hear both perspectives. And then that way, if someone is listening and they've sort of been either on the receiving end of it or they feel like they're in those shoes, just like hearing, what both people would kind of prefer, like offer empathy and patience and do try to reach out just because they might be like dealing with a lot internally. At least knowing you're there, whether they're ready to open up or not, I think is helpful. And if you do have the energy to be able to communicate, you don't have to go into every detail, but just say, I want you to know that, like, I'm going through something. It's not a reflection of you. And, like, when I'm ready, I will come to you, you know, type of thing.
I agree. And that's where, like, it gets tricky, too, because it's like I am going through my stuff right now, but it doesn't give me permission to be an asshole because, like, I've had times where I'm sure I've been an absolute asshole. And it's not an excuse. And I wasn't communicating what was going on with me. Or I'd just be like, I'm just feeling anxious today. And it's like, okay, you're feeling anxious today? Then, like, what do you need to do? Do you need to take a step back from me so you're not an asshole to me? It's like there's responsibility on both ends in a way.
I don't mean to be insensitive, but, like, that is literally my biggest pet peeve with anyone. Like, I say it, like, my relationships with my coworkers, with my sister, with anybody. Like, I think the perfect example is, like, when, not mental health, but, like, had a shitty day at work and then come home and I'm like, hey babe, and it's like, hey, I'm like, bitch, I didn't do shit to you, so don't be rude to me.
Yeah,
like,
or say I had a terrible day, I can't talk
exactly.
right now.
Like, I hate when people project things, and I know that it's hard when you're dealing with mental health, but again, that's why I think that communication comes in. And, like, it's just like, I don't want to I'm not in the mood right now to talk, but, like,
And that may take time too.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of time because like learning how to communicate, like, I mean, I was the queen of, I didn't talk about my stuff ever. I remember so many times you'd like, be like, you don't talk about your stuff. And I'd be like, yeah, I do. Because in my mind, it was just like, well, that's my life. My life is chaos. What is there to talk about?
Yeah.
Yeah, but then in turn, I was telling you, like, similar to Tracy, like, I was telling you all my stuff, and, like, you would absorb my stuff in addition to your stuff.
Well, I'm also an empath, so, like, I just...
boundaries.
I feel, yeah, because I take on everyone's energy, and it's just... Yeah, like I usually, like now I'm learning I have to be careful who I'm around and like what I allow in my space because I'll absorb it. And then all of a sudden I'm depressed about your problem. Well, not that I'm depressed about your problem, but like I've just been in relationships where they've been in terrible places and I absorb it and suddenly I'm in a terrible place. That's all I mean by that.
Yeah. No, 100%. No, I agree. With that, I mean, do you guys have anything else to add about this subject in general, anything that you wanted to say, or do you want to move into Dear TFS? You have a good question.
I think just take note of your mental health and try not to be ashamed to talk about it. And if you're not ready to talk about it, write about it. And I mean, I love therapy. I would push anybody, even if you don't think you have anything going on, or like, I mean, it's just good coping. Even if you are in a good place, and like that was probably the time to get it. So you have like the coping skills for when the bad times come, and yeah, just patience with yourself.
Yeah.
And yeah,
don't wait to get help. I agree, which is what I did, and it
Same.
it doesn't get you anywhere. So
it does not.
The earlier, the better.
Yeah.
And like, it's not a pride thing. Like, it's okay to admit that you're feeling off or you're feeling low. And I think that if those emotions surface, like, embrace it and then feel it and try to help yourself, like, move on from it rather than trying to, as I do, push it down and push it down and push it down
and
push it down.
extra, like, saying that extra for the males out there, because I still do think that there's a huge stigma against or for men's
oh my God, do you
mental
remember,
health.
I think it was like a couple years ago, like Kevin Love and Michael Phelps, that whole like campaign they did for men's mental health, that like brought me to tears. I was so happy to see that.
It's good to see.
We need more of that. We need more of that. But okay. And again, this is an ongoing conversation. This is sort of, we wanted to just take an episode to dedicate to this, as Kelsie and Tanisha are willing to be so open about it. But, you know, now we can kind of mix it in here and there, or we can follow up. If you guys have questions after this episode, we can do a little follow-up. But to end things out, we got a little Dear TFS this week. Okie dokie. It says, Dear TFS, I am in my mid-20s and I find myself not being able to sleep. My mind is constantly racing and I am just not able to achieve happiness like I used to. I want to share it with my circle of people and express how I feel, but can't help but feel guilty. Everyone else has so much going on, and I don't want to add to their plate. What would you do, or what should I do?
Well, I think this is perfectly in line with everything
literally
we are covering.
Yeah.
Do you want to go first, Nish?
Do not be hard on yourself because you're constantly evolving. So, you know, certain things that may not make you happy, like that used to make you happy, don't make you happy now, but that's okay. Like find other things that might make you happy. And I think at the end of the day, it's so important to feel it. And then I think once you feel it and you can just kind of like, okay, what am I feeling right now? Where's my brain going? It'll help you articulate to the people around you.
Agreed.
And you're never a burden. Looking at the camera. You're never, that one. You're never a burden.
I mean it though. She wasn't ready. I feel like she always knows where the camera's at.
Yeah, right?
I'm sitting in a different spot. She always knows her angle.
No, but it's true. And I think that for me, the biggest thing is like you need to, and I think I've said this before to you guys, but you need to water yourself in order to water others, in order to be able to, you know, be your true self in your relationships and just in life. You're not nothing else is gonna grow if you're not growing and if you're not progressing. If you stay in that terrible state, nothing's gonna happen. So I definitely don't feel ashamed. I know it's a weird feeling, you know, just make sure that you're doing for them what you want them to be doing for you and ask them how they are too. You know, make sure you keep that open flow of communication. That's what you guys are there for each other, you know?
And don't feel guilty. Like, well, I shouldn't just say don't feel guilty. Try not to feel guilty, because hopefully this episode will show you that you aren't alone out there, and you probably have a few friends that might be feeling the same way that may not, you know, be ready or want to talk about it either. And I don't know. I just don't be hard on yourself. That's all I can really say.
Yeah.
I would say like, so 2 parts. I think for the first part where she's talking about how she isn't able to sleep, her mind's been racing. One of my like little tricks that I do is in those moments, like you get so caught up and I'm like, why do I feel this way? Why do I feel this way? And instead of sitting there and just ruminating in that, I'm always like, how can I make myself stop feel this way? And I try to ask myself that question just to calm down that, like when those things are happening, you know, or we've talked about apps like the Calm app, or you know,
great app.
Doing some breath work like to help you sleep. Like there's tricks you can do for that sort of thing just in the moment. And then when it comes to talking to your friends, I think like for our group of friends, like we have a big group chat. There's 9 of us. We talk every single day. There's a bunch of crap in there, like about social media, work, the weather, babies, like it's a little bit of everything. So what I would say is don't initiate this conversation via text or like in a group message or anything like that. I would send a message or like one friend when you're with them in person and just be like, hey guys, I know everyone is really busy, but I could really use you guys right now. I would love to see who can get together this weekend. And then like so preface it and then have an in-person conversation too, because I think you want everyone's like undivided attention in moments like those.
Agreed.
And not have it be in passing while everyone's at work and like brush over it or gloss over it. Like let them know, hey, like I really need you right now. If like you guys ever said you need me, like I'd come running, you know?
Yeah.
So I think just saying like, hey, like I'd love to chat with you guys, and then have that conversation in person, they'll be like very receptive. I know that things like that have happened with our group, and like you know, I've talked about like, oh, I have this doctor's appointment, and like 2 weeks later, my friend Molly's like, how did the appointment go this morning? I'm like, how did you even remember that?
Yeah.
Like but just like your friends will follow up with you and check in on you, and then that way they'll at least know about it, and then they can follow up with when they have the capacity to. You're not requesting anything from them, but like your friends want to support you when they can, you know, and like when they come to see you, they'll come prepared knowing that you're ready to talk.
So my anxiety couldn't handle that. There's no way I could text a group and be like, I'm going through like depression right now. Like I couldn't do it. For me, if you're anything like me, I would just like next time you have a one-on-one time, just be like, hey, so lately, like this is how I've been feeling. I mean, obviously if you need to get it out now, you can, but like I just like, I couldn't do it. I'd be like sweating. I'm like, and I'm very like, how many times have you guys been like, why didn't I know that? So I'm very like one-on-one. So like you can also wait until like one-on-one if you're anything like me, but if you're like, don't mind sharing in a group, absolutely do that, because like Tracy said, then your friends will know like what's going on.
Yeah, as long as you're sharing in the way that you want to share,
you feel comfortable.
That's where it's at, because then you're not keeping all of that inside of you. So make sure that you communicate. You are beautiful, you are great, and you are worthy of love. So
yes.
do it.
And you're strong.
You are
Absolutely.
strong.
You are strong.
So before we wrap this up, next week for the holiday, we will not have a new episode for you. Wah, wah, wah.
Try not to cry.
So it'll be a great opportunity for you guys to catch up on episodes 1 through 5 if you haven't already. And just, everyone have a safe and happy 4th of July.
Yes, definitely. And
Enjoy.
follow, like, subscribe, comment. You can follow us on Instagram at 30 Flirty Surviving Podcast, or you can listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or iHeart.
Thanks, y'all.
Yes. All right. We out.